pay नहीं करना पड़ता. You have to go only pay for the things that you have been using. That is as opposed to the private cloud, which is where you have to basically पहले सब purchase करके हमारे data center में लाके रखो and then you use whatever that you use. तो अभी इसमें problem ये है कि sometimes you don't really end up using all the things that you bought. So I purchased, well, let's say I was expecting that ये साल तो मेरा धंधा बहुत चलने वाला है. So I said कि यार I want to buy 100 servers. So I purchased 100 servers. But ऐसा हुआ कि धंधा तो इतना चला नहीं. So I don't really need 100 servers now. So what do I do with these 100 servers? I only need 50. So public cloud, if you are in public cloud, you can just decommission those 50 and be done with it, right? And they will be deleted from your investment. So you don't have to keep on paying for the servers or the resources that you are not using. That is the beauty of public cloud. That is something that is missing in private cloud still, right? So there are some things that people realized, you know what, Miko, I don't want to move everything to public cloud. I still want to keep some things. Now there are also some organizations like so bank hai, नहीं तो insurance company है, नहीं तो let's say कोई medical company है, right? So these things or the data that these companies generate is sensitive in nature. When I say sensitive, it is the data containing the health information of a patient. And so there are some regulatory क्या बोलते हैं उसको protocols हैं कि you should not disclose the data of a patient to anybody outside of the patient actually, right? So किसी को पता नहीं चलना चाहिए. So that is not something that you can put onto a public cloud. और नहीं तो financial data है, नहीं तो military related data है. These things you cannot. So there are some hard rules and regulations that prevent you from putting this data into public cloud. So in these organizations, in these verticals, you don't have a choice to go to public cloud. So you have to stay in private cloud. But having said that, that does not mean कि private cloud मतलब कोई पुरानी concept है and private cloud is all, public cloud is all fancy. That is not the case at all. So even if you are staying in private, you should still be able to leverage some of the public services that you can use. So that is where the hybrid comes into picture, right? So this is a combination of the best things in public with the best things in private clouds, right? So you have the services coming from public cloud, but you still have the control, you still have the ownership of the data in your own data centers, right? That is very basic definition of what private cloud is. Now there are a couple of ways to achieve hybrid clouds. You can bring Azure Cloud or proxy Azure Cloud to your data center also. That is also something you can do. Or you can just simply connect your existing infrastructure to the public cloud. That is also you can do. So depending on which approach you take, there are 3 products right now. We will talk about them in the later slide, but those are Azure Stack HCI, Azure Stack Edge, and Azure Stack Hub. We won't talk much about the other products. We'll just focus on Azure Stack HCI. So this is what I was saying, right? So digital transform. So we are in the age of digital transformation, right? Everything that you are seeing around you is being digitized. We want to get out of the manual work and the manual, the risk of manual errors. We want to get away from that. We want to digitize everything so that there are minimal errors. There's more and more automation into everything, and people are, more focused into solving the problems rather than just cartoon की तरह बैठ के इधर copy paste करो, नहीं तो just do some mindless task. We don't want to do that. So because of this, there are new demands and new requirements from the developers, users, and existing workloads, right? I mean, think about whatever that you are using. Think about WhatsApp, or think about Instagram, think about Facebook. So these things आप use कर रहे हो, और think about Gmail maybe, right? Or Teams. अभी Teams down हुआ था दो दिन पहले. I don't know if पाकिस्तान में हुआ था कि नहीं, but worldwide around, including India, में Teams down था. And that was the time when people started freaking out कि अरे यार मेरा बिजनेस जा रहा है, 3 घंटा टीम बंद हो गया, मेरे सारा बिजनेस बंद हो गया, how would I take my meetings, how would I talk to my clients and customers. So these things have become very critical. तो अपना डिमांड और अपना रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या है कि I want to be online all the time. When I say online, I want the resources to be available to me all the time. I don't want downtime in anything, right? Starting from your personalized apps like Instagram or Facebook, the business में तो of course you do not have the tolerance to have any downtime in your systems. So these new demands and requirements are coming from developers. Every corner of the business is being impacted. When I say that, I often say कि regardless of what your business is, every company today is an IT company. ठीक है, think about it. Because even if you are running a hospital, पर आपका डेटा आप कहाँ सेव कर रहे हो? If you are using computers, then आपका डेटा आप सेव कर रहे हो computer systems में. That is going back into the databases. So that databases are hosted on some servers. Servers are hosted on some hardware. Hardware sir, this is कहीं hosted है data center में. Right? So all this data, आपका front end business कुछ भी हो, आपका data is being saved in the computer systems. It is being handled by the IT departments. So your business is only as efficient as your IT department, right? क्योंकि आपके IT systems कितने powerful है, कितने efficient है, उस पे depend करता है कि अपना business कैसे चलेगा. So all the corners, every corner of the business is being impacted. So from core to the edge. Core to the edge बोले तो core is think about a big data center. Microsoft का कोई data center है, it's like very big core data center. वहाँ पे पूरे services running है. There are like 10,000 servers हैं and 5,000 switches लगे हुए हैं. There are 5,000 arrays of storage devices and everything. There's a huge, let's say 15 floors की building है. That is your core data center. But then there are also edge. Edge बोले तो think about what is the biggest retail shops chain in Pakistan? Reliance वगैरह चलता है क्या पाकिस्तान में? I don't know. What's grocery shops वगैरह को क्या मिलते हैं? 911 types.
Yeah, we have a big shop called Imtiaz.
Imtiaz.
Yeah, it's a brand across every country. Yeah, Daraz is also.
Daraz, okay. Let's take an example of Daraz then. तो Daraz के there are shops around like every 1 किलोमीटर 1.5 किलोमीटर पे कोई Daraz का आउटलेट होगा, like ग्रोसरी जहाँ पे आप लेते हो. नहीं तो आपका कोई let's say Zara का आउटलेट है कहीं पे. तो these things कहीं malls पे तो होते ही है, बहुत सारे international brands होते हैं. So that is where the data is being generated at the edge. These are the edge locations. That is where the customers go. तो ये अब आपको when you go to आप दराज के शॉप पे जाते हो तो वहाँ पे आपको कोई ऐसा सर्वर बिल्डिंग लगा हुआ रहता है क्या? नहीं, because that is very lightweight. That is where ये तो आप ग्रोसरी शॉप जाते हो, नहीं तो शॉपिंग कार्ट कहीं लेके जाते हो एंड आप यू गिव योर आइटम्स टू द कैशियर जो बिल करके देगा आपको. वहाँ पे कोई बड़ा पीछे सर्वर रूम पे कनेक्टेड है क्या आपका कंप्यूटर? नहीं. तो वेयर डज दिस डेटा गो एंड स्टोर? तो एज लोकेशंस पे होता है ना कि वेयर यू आर क्रिएटिंग comparatively small amount of data, but this is still the data of your company, right? तो इसको भी कहीं पे सेव करना है. This is also important data. तो ये डेटा कहाँ जाता है? So this is where these scenarios are called edge locations, where you don't have, we assume as parent-child server. Farhan, I think you'll have to explain that a little bit more, but let's talk about that later. So what I was saying is edge locations pe are where your data is being generated. That is not your main office, let's say, for example, right? नहीं तो think about submarine, ठीक है? Think about some oil rig. भाई समंदर के बीच में कोई ऑयल रिग है, वहां से ऑयल निकल रहा है, नहीं तो माइनिंग चल रही है, तो वहां पे तो डेटा सेंटर है ही नहीं, या वहां पे तो इंटरनेट भी नहीं आएगा, राइट? तो ये डेटा आप कहाँ सेव करोगे, कैसे सेव करोगे, उसको प्रोसेस कैसे करोगे, कहाँ भेजोगे? तो ये डेटा जहाँ बनता है उसको वहीं पे प्रोसेस करना पड़ता है at the source of the generation of the data. तो वहीं पे आपको पावरफुल सिस्टम्स रहनी पड़ती है कि यार मेरे एज पे मेरे को नहीं तो जीपीयू फोकस्ड कुछ आप भी समझो there is some application that requires GPU to work. तो ये GPU आपको पता होगा, I don't know if how familiar you guys are with GPUs, but it is basically वो एक चिप होता है अलग से GPU का. तो your server has to be उसको slot होना चाहिए server को कि that will accommodate that GPU slot होना चाहिए उसको, right? तो your server, your hardware has to have the capacity or the ability to accommodate that GPU. Sir, is there a question?
No, it was just a comment. No question.
Okay. Edge devices are also used in IoT. Yes, absolutely correct. So वहीं पे है ना, तो जहाँ पे डेटा जनरेट हो रहा है वहीं पे आपको प्रोसेस करना है and then you have to send it for archival purposes to public clouds. So those are the edge locations. That is actually IDC का एक सर्वे है कि by 2025 I think around 75-80% of the data is going to be generated from the edge. So that is the amount of data that is going to be generated from the edge. तो आपको बस बड़े बड़े कोर डेटा सेंटर होके फायदा नहीं है, क्योंकि आपके रिटेल शॉप्स, आपका बिजनेस, आपके ब्रांच ऑफिसेस, अभी माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का बड़ा ऑफिस है रेडमंड में, ओके, बट कुछ छोटे ब्रांच ऑफिसेस भी है इधर उधर, उनका डेटा भी मे बी दे आर स्टोरिंग समवेयर सेंट्रली इन रेडमंड आल्सो, वी नेवर नो, राइट? तो ये कोर ही नहीं है, इट्स नॉट ओनली अबाउट द कोर एनीमोर, इट इज आल्सो अबाउट द एज लोकेशंस. तो अभी इससे वजह से क्या हो रहा है कि आईटी एनवायरनमेंट्स आर आल्सो बिकमिंग मोर कॉम्प्लेक्स. तो व्हेन आई से कॉम्प्लेक्स, व्हाट आई मीन, कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी किस वजह से आता है? डाइवर्सिटी की वजह से. तो डाइवर्सिटी बोले तो देयर आर सम workloads that some people choose to run on the edge, some are running in the core data center, and so there are some things, मैं Azure पे कुछ workloads run कर रहा हूँ, कुछ AWS में कर रहा हूँ, कुछ GCP में कर रहा हूँ. Now there are some reasons why I would want to diversify, because mainly अभी आपने देखा अभी Azure डाउन हुआ था, Teams डाउन हुआ था, Outlook भी डाउन हुआ था बीच बीच में. टीम्स तो आई थिंक पिछले 6 महीनों में 2 बार हो गया है अभी तक. तो पीपल डोंट वांट टू स्टे डिपेंडेंट कि बाबा टीम्स चला गया मेरा पूरा बिजनेस खत्म हो गया. तो व्हाट दे वांट टू डू इज दे वांट टू डाइवर्सिफाई कि ठीक है ये चला गया तो इट्स ओके, आई हैव माय रिसोर्सेज इन Azure, देन आई हैव आल्सो माय रिसोर्सेज इन AWS, और वो भी चला गया तो आई आल्सो हैव रिसोर्सेज इन GCP. तो उनको एक जगह पे लॉक्ड नहीं रहना है कि एक इकोसिस्टम में उनको अटक के नहीं रहना है. So that's why people diversify their infrastructure or their application. There is some run, suppose समझो Azure में servers run कर रहे हैं, networking components they are running in AWS, and maybe they are hosting their applications on GCP. ठीक है, तो and then they are integrating these workloads with whatever means, some automation करके they are integrating these workloads. So this is where the complexity is introduced. And this is becoming more and more apparent as the years are progressing, because we don't want to be locked in, we don't want to be dependent on a single point of failure anymore, right? And lastly, now all these challenges must be resolved with limited human interaction. तो अभी वही बात की अपन ने कि जहाँ पे humans आते हैं वहाँ पे error भी आता है. That is inevitable, right? Humans are bound to make mistakes. We are not machines. लोग थक जाते हैं, बोर हो जाते हैं, ओवर कॉन्फिडेंट हो जाते हैं, कुछ भी हो सकता है. तो they will make errors. That is just inevitable. So machines don't do that. Machines will consistently perform until they break down. Yes, there are also instances वहाँ पे where machines make mistake, but those are few, definitely few compared to what the amount of errors that humans make. Now, I don't know if you guys heard of this. It's actually something very interesting that happened, I think, a couple of days ago only. ChatGPT का नाम तो सुना होगा, maybe you might have seen.
Yeah, Google Bard.
Google Bard, exactly. That's what I was going to say. तो
100 billion.
हाँ, वो उनका 1 billion ना $100 billion का stocks उड़ गया because of one human error they are saying. अब उनका they might be trying to cover up the failure of their AI engine or whatever, बट दे आर सेइंग कि ह्यूमन एरर की वजह से गूगल बार्ड का जो एरर हुआ वो दैट वाज अ ह्यूमन एरर. So this is what we definitely want to avoid, right? अपने को we don't have, अपने पास $100 billion है भी नहीं तो कहाँ से lose करेंगे? ठीक है, so we don't want that to happen essentially, right? So automation चाहिए अपने को, reliability चाहिए अपने को, repeatability चाहिए. We want templates to be able to use multiple times. So आपको एक प्रोग्राम लिखना है, समझो आप PowerShell का एक प्रोग्राम लिखना है, तो what you do is you, नहीं तो आप छोड़ो, PowerShell भी छोड़ दो यार, आपको आउटलुक में एक ईमेल लिखना है और आपको वो बल्क में सेंड करना है से फॉर एग्जांपल, बट आपको बस 2 फील्ड में चेंज करना है कि ये ईमेल आईडी चेंज करना है, बस घुमाते रहना है, एक एक्सेल शीट से लेके घुमाते रहना है उसको. तो व्हाट आर यू गोना डू, यू आर गोइंग टू हैव सम काइंड ऑफ ऑटोमेशन इन इट. आप एक नीचे एक सब्जेक्ट बॉडी में एक टेम्पलेट लिखोगे, उसको सेव करके, सॉरी
मेल मर्ज
एग्जैक्टली, हाँ. तो वर्ड में आप एग्जैक्टली वो भी कर सकते हो. तो आप जाके एक सब्जेक्ट लाइन बताओगे, एक सब बॉडी बनाओगे, टेम्पलेट बनाओगे, उसी को घुमाते रहोगे, राइट. अब बस वो जिसका नाम घूमते रहेगा, वेरिएबल्स दोगे तो टेम्पलेट होगा. व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज रिपीटेबिलिटी है. तो हर बार अपन एक आदमी को मैसेज करके फिर दूसरा स्क्रैच से तो बॉडी लिखना चालू नहीं करेंगे, राइट. सो यही मशीन, इसीलिए मशीन्स काम आती है कि दे विल automate the things that you cannot do easily on your own. So this is why we want to introduce machines. The customer environments are also evolving. So ये more or less we have already talked about this. तो जैसे more and more applications आते रहे हैं, so there is the shift in the paradigm कि अभी all applications are not run on virtual machines. ठीक है, वो पहले दिन थे कि जब वर्चुअल मशीन बनाते थे, फिर उस पर कुछ इंस्टॉल करते थे, फिर उस पर एप्लीकेशन डालते थे एंड देन रन करते थे. अभी वैसे दिन नहीं बचे. पीपल आर ट्राइंग टू गो फॉर कंटेनराइजेशन, दे आर ट्राइंग टू गो फॉर सर्वरलेस, क्योंकि अब वर्चुअल मशीन से एप्लीकेशन रन करना बोले तो वर्चुअल मशीन बनाना पड़ता है पहले, तो फिर उसका मेंटेनेंस करना पड़ता है, उस पर ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम इंस्टॉल करो, फिर ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम मेंटेन करो, ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम पैच करो, अपडेट करो, नया वर्जन आया तो नया वर्जन अपग्रेड करना पड़ता है. हार्डवेयर होगा आपका तो हार्डवेयर खराब होगा, कभी ना कभी हार्डवेयर रिप्लेस करना पड़ता है. सो देयर आर टू मेनी पॉइंट्स ऑफ फेलियर. तो इतने मूविंग पार्ट्स नहीं चाहिए. सो दैट्स व्हाई पीपल गो फॉर कंटेनर्स. नहीं तो क्लासिक तो है ही अपने पास, नहीं तो यार ये एप्लीकेशन कल तो चल रही थी, आज क्यों नहीं चल रही है, आई डोंट नो. तो ये कंटेनराइजेशन वो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर देता है कि ये नॉट माय प्रॉब्लम, इट वाज रनिंग ऑन माय मशीन, व्हाई इज इट नॉट रनिंग ऑन योर क्लाइंट्स मशीन, आई डोंट नो, नॉट माय फॉल्ट. तो ये दीज थिंग्स कंटेनराइजेशन सॉल्व करता है, राइट. सो कंटेनर्स एसेंशियली पूरे नीचे के लाइब्रेरीज भी उठा के डिप्लॉय कर देता है, तो वेरेवर यू टेक दैट पोर्टेबल बन जाता है योर एप्लीकेशन. तो आप कहीं भी जाके रन करो, पूरा का पूरा कोड along with its dependency will start running. तो मेरे यहाँ चल रहा था, आपके यहाँ क्यों नहीं चल रहा है, वो वाला फंडा नहीं रहता कंटेनराइजेशन में. सर्वलेस सिमिलर, नीचे का पूरा आई डोंट केयर, बस मेरे को कोड रन करना है, मेरे को बस फंक्शन रन करना है, राइट. तो Azure फंक्शंस का नाम सुना होगा, नहीं तो लॉजिक एप्स का नाम सुना होगा. यहाँ पे आप VMs यूज नहीं करते हो, यहाँ पे आप क्या यूज करते हो, बस एक आपको एक कंसोल मिलता है, वहाँ पे बस आप सिलेक्ट करो कि ये मेरा पाइथन का कोड है और देन पेस्ट कर दो कोड, रन कर दो, वो बस चलने लगता है. वो कहाँ रन कर रहा है, कैसे रन कर रहा है, अपने को क्या करना है, बस अपना कोड चल रहा है, बस है. सो वहाँ पे लोग जा रहे हैं ना. एडमिटेडली ये ज्यादा, जैसे आप ऊपर ऊपर जाते हो, जैसे आप व्हेन यू रिड्यूस योर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, वैसा खर्चा भी बढ़ता है. बट इट्स ओके इफ यू हैव द बजट. तो नीचे का पूरा मेंटेनेंस, ट्रबल शूटिंग, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का पूरा बर्डन इट टेक्स अवे फ्रॉम यू. तो ये डाइवर्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इज समथिंग दैट वी जस्ट टॉक्ड अबाउट, राइट. सो इट्स नॉट ओनली अबाउट डेटा सेंटर्स, it is also moving to hyperscalers. Hyperscalers बोले तो public cloud essentially, Azure, AWS, GCP, etc. Branch offices का भी we just talked about कि there may be a headquarters of a retail machine, a retail chain maybe somewhere, but there are also little shops in the edge locations that there are branch offices. Maybe बस वहाँ पे 85 लोग बैठते हैं, maybe headquarters में बैठते होंगे 5000, बट कोई छोटी कंपनी है वहाँ पे बस 50 बैठते हैं, एंड देन यू हैव hundreds of such smaller branch offices, right? Education, actually there was an interesting customer that we were working with from Australia. तो उनका ये था कि they had a chain of educational institutes. They had around, I think 700 or something colleges to ऐसा locations थे, उनके schools थे, colleges थे, कुछ academic institutions थे वगैरह वगैरह. So they were trying to consolidate all of their management into a single point of a single pane of glass. तो उनको centrally manage करना था all their 700 locations. So Azure Stack HCI is the perfect use case for that. कि Azure Stack HCI का बस इतना सर्वर आता है, depending on आप कितने capacity वगैरह पे जाते हो, छोटे-छोटे भी servers उसके आते हैं, तो you can just fit it in one location, connect it back to the central location, and then you're good to go. So yeah, so this is diverse infrastructure. Branch offices में point of sale बोलते हैं, POS, आपने कहीं सुना होगा, देखा होगा, POS बोलते हैं, जहाँ पे सेल होता है, नहीं तो वहाँ परचेस होता है, नहीं तो डेटा जनरेट हो रहा है. IoT अभी फरहान भाई ने बात ही किया था कि IoT devices we also use as edge locations also. Multi-cloud also we have already talked about कि multi-cloud Azure AWS. It's not only about running everything in a particular cloud. It is also about diversifying your infrastructure. So now cloud is not a place, not anymore. Why do I say that? तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आप cloud जा रहे हो मतलब आप एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जा रहे हो. ठीक है, that happens sometimes and that has been happening in the last few years. But the change in the mindset is, even if I cannot go to cloud, I want cloud to come to me. ठीक है, तो मेरे को cloud तक नहीं जाना है क्योंकि I have some constraints. मेरे को कुछ policies हैं कि यार मैं I cannot breach those policies and I cannot move my applications to cloud. I cannot host my data to cloud. But why does that mean कि मेरे को cloud use करना नहीं है और मैं use नहीं कर सकता? I want all the good things about cloud while still being on my own premise. The cloud is not a place. The cloud has become an operating model. क्योंकि आप cloud में compare करो, आपका cloud Azure आपने कभी use किया है, handle किया होगा, तो you know कि cloud handle करना कितना easy है, how user friendly it is, how obvious it is. Sometimes there are things that are not so obvious, but for the most part समझ आता है कि भाई ऐसा करने से ऐसा होगा, ये करने से वैसा होगा. तो वो ease, वो scaling, अभी Azure पे scale sets वगैरह होते हैं. So if you go to a virtual machine, spin up a virtual machine, आप बोल सकते हो कि I want 5 instances of duplicate instances of this same machine. अगर मेरा load बढ़ गया तो I want these machines to automatically spin up, और जब load कम होगा तो I want machines to automatically go down. तो वो that is all goodness of the cloud. तो वो private clouds में नहीं मिलता है. So that is why cloud is not a place, that is not somewhere that you go to. Cloud is a mindset that you adopt. So cloud is the operating model that you adopt. That's why I say cloud is not a place. So what are the desired ideal infrastructure outcomes out of this? Data center modernization. So when I say data center modernization, it means hardware as well as software. So it is not only modernization मतलब सारे 2010 servers को 2019 कर दिया और 21 कर दिया तो अपना data center modernize हो गया. It's not really. ठीक है, you have done one part of the job. दूसरा भी है कि you are running all this good. तो अभी Android operating system का एक classic example लेते हैं, ठीक है? तो Android का latest version release हो गया, but आपके पास still कोई पुराना Nokia पड़ा हुआ है, तो वो तो Android रन नहीं करेगा यार. उसका मतलब it is not compatible with all the good features or all the new features that are going to be released. तो आपका हार्डवेयर भी तो सपोर्ट करना चाहिए कि आप क्या रन कर रहे हो. आपके पास इनफ रिसोर्सेज तो होने चाहिए, आपके पास इनफ डेटा होना चाहिए, सॉफ्टवेयर स्टोरेज होना चाहिए. तो आप you are expecting all the top notch 100% performance, but then you are running your storage on hard disks HDD. कैसे चलेगा? नहीं चलता. आजकल SSD मतलब लैपटॉप भी लेने जाओ तो SSD ही मिलता है आजकल, HDD तो मिलता भी नहीं है। तो ये डेटा सेंटर मॉडर्नाइजेशन हार्डवेयर और सॉफ्टवेयर दोनों का करना पड़ता है। तो ये डिलीवर कंसिस्टेंट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड रिड्यूस रिस्क बाय ऑटोमेटिंग मैनेजमेंट ऑपरेशन, ये तो अपन ने बात कर ली कि अपने को ऑटोमेट, वी वांट टू ऑटोमेट एवरीथिंग as much as possible. And now both of these things you can achieve with hybrid cloud operating model. So we'll take a look at what hybrid cloud operating model is. तो अभी जाके अपन थोड़ा Azure Stack HCI की तरफ आते हैं, ठीक है। Now telling you about this background was important because मैं सीधा आपको Azure Stack HCI क्या है और इसमें क्या होता है and इसके फीचर्स क्या हैं and एडवांटेजेस क्या हैं ये बोलते तो आपको कुछ इंटरेस्ट नहीं आता कि यार क्यों पढ़ रहे हैं, क्यों देख रहे हैं, कुछ मेक्स नो सेंस टू मी। तो अभी नाउ दैट यू नो द बैकग्राउंड, तो अभी आपको सुनने में थोड़ा इंटरेस्ट आएगा कि Azure Stack HCI is basically it is a combination of two major technologies, Azure Arc और HCI. Now HCI के बारे में अपन पहले बात कर लेते हैं। HCI is basically hyperconverged infrastructure. तो अभी hyperconverged बोले तो आपको पता होगा कि आप if you deal with hardware at all, नहीं तो आपने सुना पड़ा तो होगा ही कहीं पे कि ट्रेडिशनल 3 tier आर्किटेक्चर कैसे होता है। Largely आपके you have 3 tiers. One is the virtualization or compute tier, जहाँ पे आपके servers होते हैं। Then you have the external storage, जहाँ पे आपके storage arrays होते हैं। And then you have networking hardware, जहाँ पे आपके switches, routers वगैरह ये सब चीजें होती हैं। So traditionally these things have been different and independent, let's say. The servers will only give you the processing power. Servers is what will virtualize your environment. And then if you want to store your data to something or somewhere, then you connect via wires, you connect external storage systems to servers. Storage system का अलग से SAN devices अलग आते हैं, server से अलग है। तो servers में disks रहती हैं, but it is not something that you can store your data on for a long time. उसका कैपेसिटी वगैरह इज वेरी लिमिटेड। तो आपको लॉन्ग टाइम ज्यादा डेटा सेव करना है तो यू हैव टू गो फॉर एन एक्सटर्नल स्टोरेज सिस्टम। फिर देन यू हैव नेटवर्किंग हार्डवेयर ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट। तो ये सब कनेक्ट कहाँ करना है, नेटवर्क स्विच को। नेटवर्क स्विच विल कनेक्टेड टू अ स्पाइन स्विच। तो ये टॉप ऑफ रैक स्विच को पहले कनेक्ट होगा, दैट विल गो टू अ लीफ स्विच, फिर दैट विल गो टू अ स्पाइन स्विच, सो दैट विल गो टू आउट ऑफ योर डेटा सेंटर। इंटरनेट से कनेक्ट करना है, नहीं तो कोई दूसरे डेटा सेंटर से कनेक्ट करना है, सो ऑन। So this is how the traditional data center hardware looks like. तो अभी इसको तो इतने सालों से चल तो रहा है, so why are we bothered about this? तो अपने को क्यों, why do we want to change this? The problem with this, so there are also advantages about this. Advantages की बात करने हैं तो let's talk about servers and blades. अगर मेरे को if I want to add more servers to it or more processing power, compute power, तो I can just simply plug in another server. ठीक है, तो मैंने एक सर्वर ले लिया, प्लग इन कर लिया, स्टोरेज जो उसको था उस पे एक्स्ट्रा कनेक्ट कर लिया, बस हो गया। नहीं तो स्टोरेज डिवाइस ऐड करना है तो स्टोरेज एरे में गया, एक्स्ट्रा डिस्क डाल दिया, नहीं तो एक नया स्टोरेज डिवाइस ले लिया, प्लग इन कर दिया, एंड देन वी आर गुड टू गो। तो द गुड थिंग अबाउट इंडिपेंडेंट साइलोज इज स्केलिंग के लिए इजी पड़ता है। यू कैन स्केल इट अप एंड स्केल इट डाउन इंडिपेंडेंटली। तो आपको सिर्फ और सिर्फ स्टोरेज स्केल करना है तो यू कैन डू ओनली दैट विदाउट एडिंग अ सिंगल सर्वर। यू कैन ओनली ऐड फॉर मोर हार्ड डिस्क और व्हाटएवर। बट इसका प्रॉब्लम ये है कि ये 3 tier सिस्टम है, मतलब ऑलरेडी यहाँ पे देयर आर 3 points ऑफ फेलियर। ठीक है, तो अपना सर्वर भी खराब हो सकता है, नहीं तो स्टोरेज भी खराब हो सकता है, नहीं तो नेटवर्क भी। दूसरा प्रॉब्लम यह है कि these you can purchase this from different independent vendors. So say for example मेरे सर्वर मैंने I bought it from Dell, storage I bought it from VMware, and networking मेरा Cisco का है। So if something goes wrong, where should I go? कहाँ जाऊँ मैं, किसका दरवाजा खटखटाना है पहले? क्योंकि when I go to Dell, वो बोलेंगे यार नहीं यार ये तो मेरा प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, ये स्टोरेज प्रॉब्लम है, अब जाओ सिस्को को, नहीं तो अपना कौन सा था स्टोरेज भी VMware का था, तो आप जाओ VMware के पास जाओ। मेरा this is not my problem. तो VMware के पास आप जाओगे तो वो बोलेगा नहीं यार this is not my problem, आप सर्वर के पास जाओ. So this is multiple entry points हैं कि आपको this is all hampering your MTTR, right? MTTR is mean time to resolution. So from the time something happens, something goes wrong to the time you make it right, this time we want to reduce, right? As much as possible. We want our systems to be up as soon as possible. So we are already trying to बस पहले अपने को यही नहीं समझ रहा है कि मैं किसको जाके बताऊं कि मेरे को प्रॉब्लम है ठीक करा दो. So that is the problem with three-tier architecture as well. Also, now obviously, since it is 3 tiers, it is going to be more devices. So you have 15 servers, then you have 20 devices, vSAN devices for storage, and then you have 5 networking switches, for example. So this is already a lot of hardware footprint. This is a lot of hardware footprint already. Now, not so obvious खर्चा भी आता है इसमें कि there are many devices. That means I have to purchase many more wires. I have to purchase more space जहाँ पे मेरे को इसको रखना है. I have to invest more in the cooling systems because 10 servers का 50 vSAN arrays का heat तो बहुत बनेगा. तो how do I control that heat also? Cooling system में वगैरह में बहुत invest करना पड़ता है. So these are all the good things and mainly bad things about 3-tier infrastructure. So then people moved on to hyperconverged. Now इसके बीच में और एक tier आता है converged infrastructure का. That is not something that we'll talk about. But hyperconverged is basically the next step, the most recent technologies, let's say. So hyperconverged infrastructure, what it does is it combines these things into a single appliance. The single appliance will have compute, so it will do virtualization. It will also have storage, and then it also have software-defined networking. So HCI also makes everything software defined. Okay, so when you have a device, वो बस एक single appliance आपको देते हैं HCI का जिसपे HCI install रहता है. And if you open that chassis up, you will see, okay, यहाँ पे एक dual core processor है, and then there are some like 15 slots for inserting my hard disks, and I can also connect this to top of the rack switch. तो सीधा आपके पास आपने एक tier eliminate कर दिया storage का, because storage is now inbuilt. So what you have done is you have drastically reduced your footprint, your hardware footprint. You have also reduced the number of vendors that are involved into designing your data center. ठीक है, because मेरा एक appliance है Dell का है, समझो नहीं तो Lenovo का है, HP का है. That is, they are going to support everything about that device. Now they will support the processor, compute, they will support storage also, and they will support any software and hardware issues that also happen on the same device, that they will cover everything. So whatever goes wrong, you just have one door to knock. HP, Dell, नहीं तो Lenovo, नहीं तो जो कुछ आपका system जिसने आपके purchase किया है. So all of this is software defined. तो आपको single console से you can also manage storage, you can also manage compute, you can also manage networks. And so you have drastically streamlined your process. कि 10 अलग console से you have combined all of this into a single console. Now all of this is software defined, and you can scale it up and down just by adding another server to it. So that is HCI. फिर आता है Azure Arc. This is the other technology that is supporting Azure Stack HCI, right? So Azure Arc, if you haven't heard about Azure Arc yet, well, let me start by saying that Azure Arc is growing day by day, and Microsoft is taking Azure Arc very seriously. If you have been following any hybrid cloud forums or community on LinkedIn or whatever communities, then you have heard of Azure Arc, because you cannot take Azure Arc out of Azure now. Azure Arc क्या करता है कि basically it gives you the ability to connect your on-prem or let's say non-Azure resources to Azure. So you can be hosting your software, your workloads anywhere. So you can have your server running in GCP, for example. You can still install Azure Arc and project that server back into Azure. And when you do that, even if your machine is running in GCP, जो machine Azure पे run कर रही है, it will be treated exactly the same. तो Azure will not differentiate कि यार ये machine मैं run नहीं कर रहा हूँ, GCP run कर रहा है, तो मैं अपना operating model इसको apply नहीं करूँगा. No, that does not happen, right? As soon as that image gets projected into Azure, it starts treating it as its own first-class resource. So whatever Azure can do to its native resources, it can also do to Azure Arc-enabled resources as well. So अभी इसमें there are capabilities still missing. मतलब उसमें gap है for Azure Arc-enabled workloads and native Azure workloads. For now, there is, but Microsoft is working towards making that gap as thin as possible. Yeah, wherever you are running it, you can still project everything into your Azure plane. So if you notice in this diagram here, you will notice कि ये जो orange है, that orange row comes down from Azure Arc, and then this kind of grayish blue line also goes up from Azure Arc to Azure resources. What that means is you can not only project your non-Azure resources to Azure, it also means that you can bring Azure services back to your non-Azure workloads as well. So not only I can, so मेरा server Azure में GCP का server Azure में जा सकता है, of course, but मेरा Azure services GCP में भी आ सकता है using the same piece of software, that is Azure Arc. तो आपका whatever Azure Arc enabled infrastructure बोलते हैं. So for example, some of the most common ones are Azure Arc enabled SQL है, नहीं तो Azure Arc enabled servers है, Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes है, AKS का नाम अगर आपने सुना होगा, so AKS is one of the fastest growing services in Azure. So you can not only bring your things to Azure, you can also bring things from Azure to you, right? So that is what Azure Arc does. So it is a two-way communication then, or two-way capabilities, I should say. So this is what it looks like in terms of the portfolio, what hybrid infrastructure products that Microsoft provides you. So we have talked about this already. The Azure Arc Hub है, Azure Stack HCI है, and then Azure Stack Edge है. We are not going to spend a lot of time talking about Azure Stack Hub and Edge, but just know that these are also some of the products that Azure is, Azure offers you. But the hottest and most invested product by Microsoft is Azure Stack HCI. Okay, this is the growing product. Azure Stack Hub, they are kind of stagnant. There's very specific use cases for Azure Stack Hub and Azure Stack Edge. तो उनके customers भी बहुत restricted spaces से आते हैं. But Azure Stack HCI can be adopted by anybody and everybody. So what is Azure Stack HCI? So it is basically a purpose-built HCI operating system delivered as an Azure service. What that means is like any Azure service, आपको उसको maintain नहीं करना पड़ता. ठीक है? So if you think about Azure Monitor, say for example, Azure Monitor को आप क्या करते हो? बस your server आप connect कर देते हो, आप logs भेज देते हो Azure Monitor को, and Azure Monitor will start doing its thing to the logs that you have sent. अभी Azure Monitor को आप कभी maintain करते हो क्या? कि do you install Azure Monitor on your servers? No, you don't do that. वो Azure के पास होता है. Microsoft will take care of uptime and maintenance and all the troubleshooting of Azure Monitor itself. Same happens with Azure Stack HCI. आप Azure Stack HCI install करते हो आपके machine में, but it is delivered as an Azure service, which means कि इसका upgradation वगैरह जो होता है, Microsoft will test it, Microsoft will release it, and it is in the support of Microsoft completely. So there are three components: Hyper-V, S2D और Azure Inspired SDDN बोलते हैं इसको. Hyper-V is for virtualization, as you know. अब Hyper-V क्या करता है कि it takes all the processing power and pools it. तो आपका dual core, let's say 96 cores हैं आपके server में. So what it will do is it will pool all the cores, and then it will assign cores जैसे आप उसको if you hyper v क्या बोलते हैं उसको hypervisor है, right? Hypervisor मतलब आपको you must know already कि it's virtualization platform that pools the hardware resources and makes it software accessible. So the Hyper-V is Microsoft's offering in that space. So Azure Stack HCI may be exactly the same as it is in Windows Server. Hyper-V पे ही चलता है Azure Stack HCI virtualization के लिए. S2D is for fast enterprise grade storage. S2D storage spaces direct is I think 2012 या 16 में कुछ introduce हुआ था. After that they have optimized it. So it's basically a way to store your data more efficiently and you can access it more efficiently than just normal storage, let's say. Azure inspired software तो ये भी ऐसा ही है कि you can have your own VNICs जैसा बोलते हैं virtual network cards and so on. So आप उसको converge, non-converge जैसे different protocols में बना के you can do it within the device itself. And then stretch clustering. Stretch clustering बोले तो it is for DR, disaster recovery, नहीं तो high availability. Okay, if your primary data center goes down, you still have secondary data center that is वो हमेशा replicate होते रहता है. Whatever changes you make in the primary are also replicated in the secondary. This is Azure Hybrid by design. Again, we have talked about most of these things. But Azure Stack HCI is a resource provider, right? So आप जैसे project करते हो, so when you, let's say, okay, so when you install Azure Stack HCI, you create a cluster. ठीक है, तो आपके cluster में एक server हो सकता है, 2 servers हो सकते हैं, 10 हो सकते हैं, up to 16. So you create a cluster, and as soon as you create the cluster, you have to register the cluster with Azure. तो आपका register किया तो आपके Azure portal में दिखेगा कि this is your Azure Stack HCI cluster. If you click on that cluster, on the left side you will see all the Azure constructs. So Azure Monitor, Azure Upgrade, tags, logs, IAM होता है, identity management. All these things are also present for an Azure Stack HCI resource as well. So it is a resource provider on its own. Management and governance is done with Azure Resource Manager and Azure Arc, like we just talked about, and native integration with Azure services. So once it is present in Azure, you can use most Azure native services to your non-native Azure resources as well. So how do you manage all of this? So you manage this using the Azure portal, of course, or you can also do it using Windows Admin Center. So Windows Admin Center, आपने सुना होगा, if you may have also used it. It's basically एक browser-based UI होता है जहाँ पे you have all the Microsoft snap-ins and certificates and all the capabilities that you will need to manage your operating system. So that is how you. नहीं तो आप System Center use कर रहे हो, System Center Virtual Machine Manager, if you have heard of it, that is also from somewhere you can manage your Azure Stack HCI deployment. So what is the difference between Azure Stack HCI and Windows Server? Because अभी मैं जितना अभी तक मैंने बोला, some of you may be thinking क्या रहा है तो इसमें special क्या है, ये तो Windows Server भी does the same things. So these are the differences, right? So licensing अलग है. Licensing Windows Server का its own paid license. So Windows Server का Data Center Edition, ये वो Standard Edition वगैरह, I don't need to tell you about that. तो वो Windows Server का अलग से licensing है. Azure Stack HCI is built to your Azure subscription. तो आप जितना कोर्स यूज करते हो उतना ही बिल आपको होता है. So that is also built to your Azure subscription, वो that you will be generated at the end of the month. Azure Arc integration Windows Server के साथ भी कर सकते हैं. Yes, you can do it, but उसके लिए you have to manually install agents. But as soon as you're using Azure Stack HCI and you make an Azure Stack HCI cluster, it is automatically Azure Arc enabled. So you don't have to do any additional activities on that cluster. Hardware, Windows Server can run anywhere. So Windows Server can run on premise also, on your own data center. It can also run on any machines that you spin up anywhere. You can spin it up in GCP, you can spin it up in Azure, you can spin it up in AWS. But Azure Stack HCI only runs on validated or integrated hardware. So when you order Azure Stack HCI, you have to order it with the hardware underlying. ठीक है, तो उसका hardware server ही आता है. Now the hybrid benefits for Windows Server and Azure Stack HCI, this is one of the important ones. This is where you will save money because like I said, free extended security updates. Windows Server 2008 and SQL 2008, 2012 इसके लिए ये बंद हो चुका है. Microsoft does not give you any security updates for those versions. But if you still want to have it, then you have to purchase it additionally with Microsoft, and it is costly. It is not cheap. But if you are going with Azure Stack HCI, ये free extended support आपको 2 साल के लिए, I think 2 या 3 साल के लिए you get it for free. So if you get Azure Stack HCI, you can also run your Windows Server 2008 or 2012 workloads on it. Stretch cluster with S2D. This is not present in Windows Server. You can do replication, but only using volume replica. But Azure Stack HCI में that happens using S2D. Cluster aware updates. Windows Server can also cluster aware updates का एक workflow quickly बता देता हूँ मैं. Cluster aware updates मतलब if you are applying an update that requires a reboot on a server, तो वो क्या करता है कि it will evacuate all the workloads on that server, then it will upgrade that server and then it will patch it. तो उससे क्या होता है कि जो workloads run हो रहे हैं वो server पे वो down नहीं होते, they are running on some other server. So once that is done, it will move on to the next server and do the same thing. So ये Windows Server can do it only for the OS level. Azure Stack HCI can do it on OS as well as the underlying hardware level. Windows Server का desktop experience है, so you can GUI based Windows Server का version है, but Azure Stack HCI only comes as a terminal version, only as a core operating system. So उसका GUI नहीं होता. So all you have to do is you can only do it on the terminal or command line. Now pricing Windows Server का change होता है depending on what plan you go with, what mode of licenses you go with. Azure Stack HCI का fixed है per core per month. आप जितने core use करते हो उसी का charge आपको होता है at the end of the month. And these are just some of the use cases. I won't talk about them, talk about all of them, but you can see some of the most, what we see, some of the most usual ones is this third one, this VDI or AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop. Then we also see the edge locations, of course, robo offices, branch offices, and AKS. Again, is one of the highly most sought out services into Azure, as well as Azure Stack HCI. Licensing and cost. How do you get Azure Stack HCI? How is it licensed? Like I said, it is licensed per physical core per month, and it is only $10. So you can run anything on top of it. उसका additional charge नहीं लगता, as long as you are using some Azure services. Say for example Azure Monitor आप use कर रहे हो, तो Azure Monitor connect करके Azure Monitor का pricing volume based होता है, तो आप जितना logs भेजते हो उतना Azure Monitor charge करता है basically. So if you are using those complementary services, then yes, that will be additional. But to run anything else, to run S2D, to run Hyper-V, to run networking, there is no separate charges. Even to run stretch clustering, there is no there is no additional charges. Add-on workloads, अभी आप operating system, Azure Stack HCI is the primary operating system, right? आप Azure Stack HCI पे applications run नहीं कर सकते. Azure Stack HCI will only virtualize your hardware. Then on top of it, as जैसा normally करते हो, आपको Windows Server install करना ही पड़ेगा. उस Windows Server पे आप जाके applications run करोगे. So there are ways to do it. So you can bring your own license or you can opt for Windows Server subscription. I won't talk much about that, but it is 23.3 per physical core per month. But the good thing is, abhi last to Ignite हुआ था, then Microsoft announced कि if you have Windows Server data center license with software assurance on top of it, तो ये ऊपर का जो आपने देखा cost $10 and 23.3, that will be waived off. तो ये essentially आपको free में मिलेगा. And then ये नीचे वाला AKS का price है, वो let's not talk about that for now. Just in a minute, I'll just talk about the last slide, I think. Yeah. So in the last slide, I just want to talk about if you decide to purchase Azure Stack HCI, there are two ways to do it. you can either opt for integrated systems or you can go for validated systems. Now, I won't read it out loud. You have the table in front of you. You can read it yourself. These slides will share it out also. But the bird's eye view, the summary ये है कि integrated systems are more detailed, they are more thorough than validated systems. Integrated systems, they basically sell it as the whole complete package from beginning to the end. So they will also ship you the device. They will also send their engineers to set up that device in your data centers. They will day one operation के लिए they will make you ready. Validated systems का वैसा नहीं है. They will just ship you the hardware and then you're on your own. ठीक है, आप अपना install कर लो, आप अपना integrate कर लो, जो करना है so. And then there are also some other differences between them. So you can try it yourself actually. Azure Stack HCI, you can install it on any nested virtualization. आपका कोई, if you have a VM lying around, तो थोड़ा powerful होना चाहिए. You can run your Azure Stack HCI in nested virtualization format in it as well. So for first 60 days, it is free. After that, it will start charging you per physical core per month or whatever. These are just some of the things that you can use to deploy your Azure Stack HCI cluster. That is it. If there are any questions, I hope I did not step over time too much. If there are any questions, please do let me know.
Thank you very much, Kailash. It was very interesting. I'm looking into the chat window for questions, but I have one question.
Okay.
ये जो Azure Stack HCI है और जो Azure Stack है, ये दो different चीजें हैं या ये एक ही तरह की दो चीजें?
कौन सा Azure Stack HCI and
Azure Stack.
Azure Stack. अच्छा, okay, good question. So Azure Stack was the old name of Azure Stack Hub. So they rebranded it. So Azure Stack is now the umbrella term, जिसके अंदर तीन products हैं: Azure Stack Hub, Azure Stack HCI, and Azure Stack Edge. So Azure Stack is now the family of products. पहले Azure Stack Hub को Azure Stack बोलते थे, but now they have changed that.
Okay. और ये जो Azure Stack HCI cluster बनेगा जिसके ऊपर जब हम इसे डिप्लॉय कर रहे होंगे Azure HCI को, इसको जब हम मॉनिटर करेंगे तो इसे हम Azure Arc से मॉनिटर करेंगे?
Yes, absolutely. So there are ways to do it because this is on your own. तो ये device तो आपके पास ही रहेगा, right? So it will be on your own data center. So you can connect it to Azure Monitor using Azure Arc, or you can also use third-party tools like Nagios. आपको use करना है Nagios से monitor कर लो, App Dynamics use करना है उससे कर लो, नहीं तो Microsoft का SCOM भी आता है, SCOM use करना है SCOM install कर लो. So you can monitor it the way you want. आपके पास उसका पूरा कंट्रोल है, और you can use just connect it to Azure. Azure Monitor तो है ही, Azure Monitor will monitor it.
We also have a question from Kazim Raza. He's saying that
yeah, is it cloud in the box?
Yes.
It's not cloud in the box. Cloud in the box would be Azure Stack Hub. Azure Stack Hub is more close to being called cloud in the box. क्योंकि when Azure Stack Hub में क्या होता है ना कि उसका भी devices आते हैं, उसका भी एक ऐसा box आता है, let's say, उसमें clustered devices आते हैं, servers वगैरह आते हैं, उसमें you have many more Azure services. So that would be as if Azure Microsoft से निकाल के आपके data center में ला लिया है. So it looks the same, it feels the same, एकदम Azure portal ही आपको लगेगा कि यार मैं तो Azure portal में ही काम कर रहा हूँ. That happens in Azure Stack Hub. पर Azure Stack HCI में ना, Azure Stack HCI में आप Hyper-V आप install करके उस पे virtual machines चलाते हो, and then from that point on, all of that is on you. तो ये आप Windows Admin Center से operate करते हो. तो आप you can connect it to Azure Monitor. It is more like connecting Azure to your on-prem using a thread. ऐसा समझ लो, Azure Arc एक thread है समझ लो, तो उससे आप उसको कनेक्ट कर रहे हो योर ऑन प्रेम टू Azure. Cloud in the box would be Azure Stack Hub. That is, it's basically just taking a piece of Azure into your data center. तो उसमें वो फर्क है. But Azure Hub में ऐसा भी है कि Azure Public Portal तो आपको मालूम है कि आप you cannot अंडर द कवर्स नहीं देख सकते क्या चल रहा है, क्योंकि Azure Hub में क्या होता है ना, Azure Stack Hub में there are exactly the same SKUs जैसे बोलते हैं, जिसको अभी आपने कभी virtual machine spin up किया है Azure में, तो you know that there are specific templates that you can choose from. तो आपको उसी templates में से एक virtual machine बनाना पड़ता है. आप आपका customized configuration नहीं डाल सकते उसमें, ठीक है. तो whatever B series है, D series है, A series है, S series है, DS series है, तो ये series जो Microsoft देता है उसी में से आपको choose करना है पब्लिक Azure में. और आप Azure Stack Hub लाते हो आपके ऑन प्रीमाइस में, उसमें भी exactly the same है. There are exactly the same SKUs. तो वही SKUs में से, वही कैटेगरीज में से आपको वर्चुअल मशीन बनाना पड़ता है. पर Azure Stack HCI में कैसा है कि आप बस ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम इंस्टॉल कर लो, फिर उस पर आप उसका जैसा आपका मशीन चाहिए, जो कॉन्फ़िगरेशन पे चाहिए वो आप खुद बना लो, क्योंकि देन आप यू आर मेकिंग योर ओन वर्चुअल मशीन, यू आर नॉट spinning from the template of a virtual machine. So cloud in the box is more similar to Azure Stack Hub. Azure Stack HCI is more like connecting on-prem to Azure using threads, using roles. ऐसा सोच लो उसके बारे में.
Perfect, thank you. Just one more question. When we go for Azure Stack Hub, what about the billing or cost of the VMs? Is it any different because we are running in the box we already own, or is it same as running it in the cloud?
तो Azure Stack Hub का प्राइसिंग उसका मॉडल ही अलग है. उसमें उसका टी-शर्ट साइजेस वगैरह भी आता है. सो इट डिपेंड्स ऑन कि आप Azure कितना कोर यूज कर रहे हो, आप कितना सप्लीमेंट्री सर्विसेज उस पर यूज कर रहे हो. It is not. It is. I would say it is somewhere in the middle. वो Azure exactly Azure जितना नहीं है. It is also not exactly same as Azure Stack HCI. उसका pricing model अलग है because Azure Stack HCI पे Azure Stack Hub you can actually capex investment कर सकते हैं उस पे. तो आप lump sum amount देते हो Microsoft को और बोलते हो कि यार ये मेरे को दे दो, मैं यूज कर लूंगा, क्योंकि Azure Stack Hub का यूज केस ऐसा है ना कि वो बहुत पर्टिकुलर है. Azure Stack Hub मोस्टली ऑफलाइन यूज करते हैं, क्योंकि अभी समझो सबमरीन में है, समझो अपन, तो आप कंप्यूटर प्रोसेसिंग पावर डेटा सेंटर कहाँ से लाओगे, वहाँ इंटरनेट भी तो चलेगा नहीं. Azure Stack HCI has to be connected at least once every 30 days to Azure for billing purposes.
Yeah.
Azure Stack Hub can run completely offline. तो उसका वो भी एक्सपेंस मॉडल आप ऑप्ट कर सकते हो कि मेरे को I'll give you lump sum money and then you can use whatever virtual machines for however long you want in Azure Stack Hub.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Azure Stack Hub और Azure Stack HCI में कंफ्यूजन होता है स्टार्टिंग में, इसलिए मैं ज़्यादा Azure Stack Hub में गया नहीं, क्योंकि मेरे को भी हुआ था when I first started learning about this, तो I felt like यार ये तो बस अभी तो ये पढ़ा था मैंने Azure Stack Hub में, और अब मैं ये पढ़ रहा हूँ Azure Stack HCI में, तो इसमें डिफरेंस क्या है. बट आप जैसे थोड़ा और नुआंसेस में पढ़ते जाते हो ना, डिटेल्स में थोड़ा सा, तो आपको समझ आता है कि यार हाँ नहीं, इसमें काफ़ी बड़े डिफरेंसेस हैं. अब Azure Stack Hub निकाल ही दो, दिमाग में से निकाल दो पूरा, क्योंकि Azure Stack Hub में Microsoft खुद का इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं है. A lot of vendors that are providing Azure Stack Hub systems are also withdrawing their offerings, क्योंकि उसको इतना स्कोप ही नहीं है. People are not buying that. It is, first of all, it is expensive. Azure Stack Hub बहुत expensive है, और उसका वेरी स्पेसिफिक यूज केस होता है जो नहीं ज़्यादा कंपनियों का नहीं होता. तो यू विल वेरी रेयरली एनकाउंटर एनीवन बाइंग Azure Stack Hub न्यूली. अभी जिन्होंने परचेस कर लिया है देन दे विल कीप यूजिंग इट, तभी न्यूली यूज नहीं करते हैं एज मच एज पॉसिबल. So Azure Stack HCI is where all the investment is.
Thank you very much, Sunil. I think there is one more question.
Yeah, best resource to run Azure Stack HCI apart from Microsoft Learn. Well, I will start by saying Microsoft Learn is actually pretty good starting point. उनका documentation काफी अच्छा है. But then there are also third-party courses. अभी आप Udemy use करते हो या Coursera use करते हैं या whatever you use, उसमें भी Azure Stack HCI के courses हैं. Now, having said that, I don't want to plug myself or my company, but Topcore is also we are developing this Azure Stack HCI learning course ourselves. So we are in the process of doing exactly that. We are making a course for let's say teaching Azure Stack HCI, and we will also have demos and all the nitty-gritties of best practices, things to watch out for. Pitfalls जो obviously दिखते नहीं है, जो Microsoft documentation में कई बार नहीं होते, but when you do something आपको समझ आता है कि यार ये documentation में नहीं है, but ये ऐसा करना है इसको. If you do it in any other different way, then it won't work. So yeah, these things you get to know from experience. So we are building that course ourselves. It will take some time, but yeah. But if you are new, then I would still suggest go with Microsoft Learn. क्योंकि Microsoft Learn में कैसा है ना, Azure Stack HCI is not only about Azure Stack HCI, it is also about S2D, it is also about Hyper-V, it is also about networking. तो ये सारा interlinking documentation में होता है Microsoft के. So you can just go ahead and complete that portion first, then come back to Azure Stack HCI. Then you will learn a lot of things.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sameer. ये बहुत interesting presentation थी आज.
Thank you. All the good questions. Again, if you have any additional questions, I am on LinkedIn. Feel free to ping me anytime. If I have, if I know the answer, then I'll definitely let you know best of my knowledge.
Thank you very much, Sameer. And hopefully आप future में भी हमें time देंगे.
अरे बिल्कुल, आप बस बुलाने की जरूरत है, आप बस बुला लो, हम आ जाएंगे.
This is one of the fantastic webinars I have ever held. Because इसे hybrid करने से बहुत ज़्यादा interaction रहा है और चीजें बहुत अच्छी तरीके से समझ में भी आएगी.
फिर भी डेमो नहीं है मेरे पास this time. Maybe next time I'll show you a demo.
ये टॉपिक भी बहुत theoretical है, इसमें डेमो और करना भी थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है.
हाँ, नहीं, उसका डेमो कैसा है ना कि थोड़ा ट्रिकी है. Azure Stack HCI का भी क्योंकि उसका हार्डवेयर परचेस करना पड़ता है and that is not easily available नहीं होता. तो we have a nested virtualization, so we have a VM inside of a VM inside of a VM inside of a VM. ऐसे 4 layers of virtualization बना के हमने एक Azure Stack HCI lab बनाया था, but वो भी अभी भी उसका भी validity खत्म हो गया है, so we have to go create a new one. But ठीक है, let's say once I do that, then I'll record more webinars and podcasts maybe.
Sure.
Perfect.
Thanks, Sameer. I will definitely invite you again at some other time.
Sure.
On some other topic, but it was really interesting. And thank you very much for your valuable time. I will upload this YouTube recording to our YouTube channel. And
Sure.
have a very nice evening, and have a very nice evening to all the participants. See you next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everybody.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Take care.